Zelda Twilight Princess poses a unique question for Nintendo Switch. Having already been released on Nintendo's last 3 home platforms, you'd expect its hybrid console to be next in line for a conversion. It just makes sense. We've seen a joint 2006 release on GameCube and Wii, and a remaster on the ill-fated Wii U a decade later, which bumped the resolution from 480p to 1080p and added better textures, shadows and new details along the way. It was an excellent adaptation, a project handled by developer Tantalus that could find yet more exposure on Switch. But surprisingly, the most recent port of Twilight Princess isn't to a Nintendo platform at all. Instead, this year we got this, an officially licensed version of the game on Nvidia Shield TV. So what are we looking at? Well, Twilight Princess is one of 4 Wii titles to release on the Chinese store for Shield, and I will stress, it's available on the Chinese store alone. Produced by Nvidia's Lightspeed Studio and Nintendo, none of these are available in the West, and it involves serious jumping through hoops for other territories to access it. And yes, this version of Twilight Princess is official, joining the likes of Super Mario Galaxy, Punch-Out and New Super Mario Bros. Wii on the system. The surprising part? Well, it turns out these are actually well produced too, far from a copy-paste of the original ISO file. Yes, it's very likely working under emulation, but the controls, fonts and UI have been adapted carefully with Shield in mind. It's reassuring to see Nintendo in the opening credits too, and certainly we have the kind of care and attention we'd expect of a genuine Switch port here, if it is to ever arrive. The mention of a Switch port is relevant too. As we've discussed in our analysis of Mario Galaxy on Shield, both consoles share the same Nvidia Tegra X1 silicon on chip. There are clock differences between the two, but fundamentally, this is proof of concept that Wii games can run on the same hardware. Not only that, but in Mario Galaxy's case, we got a res boost into the bargain, pushing it to 1920 by 1404, super sampling the image on the vertical axis for 1080p displays. Yes, it lacks anti-aliasing, but it still looks incredible. A colossal upgrade over the Wii Classic. Changes were even made to the pointer controls and motion-based inputs of the Wii Remote to make it more palatable for Shield's traditional controller. Looking to Switch then, it's easy to see all of this remapped to the Pro gamepad, which uses a very similar layout. But Zelda Twilight Princess is a different case. Bearing in mind there's already a beautiful HD remaster on Wii U, what does this mean for a prospective Switch release of this version? It's not something we had to think about with Mario Galaxy, but in Zelda's case we have a fork in the road. The Shield release isn't a glamorous remake in the vein of the HD edition at all, but it is ready-made and proven to work on the same hardware. Just as surprising is the extent to which Nvidia Lightspeed customizes the experience too. Everything starts with picture quality. Twilight Princess runs at 1920 by 1404, with some very small borders at the top and bottom amounting to 30 pixels total. It mirrors Mario Galaxy's approach exactly, a 3 times increase of the original 640 width. The super sampling from 1404 vertical is also strange. It's true of Mario too, and gives a slight super sampling effect. For what it's worth, the pixel count does actually exceed that of Twilight Princess HD running at a straight 1080p. But the fact is that, just in line with the Wii and GameCube originals, no anti-aliasing is in play with Shield. So really that vertical super sampling can only go so far to help with those dreaded jagged edges. What it really needs is the thorough anti-aliasing pass of the HD edition, so you will notice picture quality is rougher overall on Shield. Resolution isn't everything though. Okay, we do get a boost to anisotropic filtering quality on the ground, but the textures are the same as the GameCube and Wii versions. From effects to shaders to character detail, it's all plucked straight from Nintendo's 2006 vision. Now having all that presented at 1080p wouldn't be such an issue, but Twilight Princess does lean on a more realistic colour palette, broaching a more sinister, darker, realistic even style. All that doesn't quite hold up by today's standards, especially with the res cranked up. That's not to say it can't work. There's a timelessness to Mario Galaxy's bright, simplistic visuals that translates well to this level of clarity, but it's not so much the case here. It works, but visually, having missed the fineries of the HD edition, Twilight Princess shows its age. Its one saving grace is that every scene does at least run in-engine. It helps that Nintendo renders everything in actual 3D, live on the hardware itself, meaning everything is scalable to higher resolutions like this. Not quite the case for Mario Galaxy's opening stages, as we found out, which uses the compressed pre-rendered cutscenes of the Wii version, forever stuck at 480p. There's another twist though. This Shield release keeps the original perspective of the GameCube and Wii U versions. Now if you'll remember, the Wii edition was unique because it mirrored the entire world, inverting the position of everything on screen. It meant Wolf Link howls from the right side of the Zelda logo, while the other versions of him appear on the left. More importantly, it also makes Link right-handed on the Wii version, mapping the way most players would hold the Wii remote on the right, swinging the sword using motion controls. Shield undoes all of this. The move back to a more conventional controller on Nvidia Shield makes all of that unnecessary. It flips the whole world back to the GameCube style, which defies the idea it's simply emulating the Wii release. It's fair to say this project is a bit more involved then. One theory is this could be the GameCube version at its core, tweaked to add in a widescreen view not available originally to that platform. Only the Wii version had a 16:9 aspect ratio at the time, but starting with a GameCube build would keep the world in its original state and involve no workarounds for adapting motion controls. Then again, the HUD is completely reworked, repositioned with new button icons to match the controller. So, all told, Shield is a bespoke, unique version then, combining GameCube's left-right perspective, the Wii version's 16:9 widescreen mode, while also updating the package to 1080p, much like the Wii U does. It's custom tailored for Shield to such a point, it's hard to imagine Nintendo's efforts here being left entirely to the Chinese market and Nvidia's system. A few other things I've noticed. The controls all translate very easily, basically taking the button layout from GameCube and Wii U. Mario Galaxy struggled a bit in the jump from Wii to a pure controller on Shield, pushing the pointer controls to the right stick and the spin attack to the bumpers. It makes sense, but pressing a button to shatter a frozen glacier with a spin doesn't have the same impact as on the original hardware. Fortunately, moving the right stick to aim the crossbow is more intuitive than Nintendo's first stab at Wiimote pointer controls. You'll also spot the Chinese calligraphy, making a story-driven game like Twilight Princess tougher to play than the other three. There's no English option at all, but obviously it'd be easy enough to retrofit that for a Switch Western release. In terms of user interface, the button prompts and minimap also get an upgrade. It's just like Mario Galaxy here, though some parts with the HUD largely depend on the older 480p bitmaps, dating back to the GameCube era. Weapons and items, for example, are a blurry mess, but the rest does look great. And on the plus side, at the very least, Shield removes the dithering of the older versions, a banding effect that showed a low bit color depth in use. Here, everything is crisp and clear. Perhaps just as impressively, this game also runs well in terms of frame rate, even at 1080p. Okay, performance is still capped at 30fps. It's the only game in the quartet of Nintendo releases on Shield to do this. We have to accept that the goalposts are being moved for resolution, while the frame rate is fixed at the original target. It's a welcome surprise though to find an Android-based port using a 30fps cap with no sign of odd frame pacing. Single frame dips flare up every now and then, often while travelling quickly, and it's quite similar to Mario Galaxy's turnout. But this isn't a botched 30fps implementation. Frame pacing is even otherwise. I've yet to find any major drops in general, and certainly nothing quite like the HD remaster on Wii U, which was pushing its luck with the extra bells and whistles in a few areas. Judging by the first few hours of play, this is looking like a rock-solid port, but the preference is clear. If the Zelda Twilight Princess HD remaster didn't already exist, this would be a more compelling prospect. As a way to push Wii and potentially GameCube titles to Switch, this is still a smart, cost-effective way to do it. The interface, resolution, and even perspective of the game are uniquely tailored for Shield, and there's technically no other version quite like it. But we'd be missing the bigger potential if Nintendo chose this path. Not only could the HD remaster come to Switch, it could build upon it to add even more features, to improve on performance, tweak the visuals to add more scenery, or even high-grade shadows and more. What would work for Super Mario Galaxy, in other words, doesn't for Zelda. It's a fascinating experiment nonetheless, a what if that involves looking to a less frequented corner of the gaming market. Nvidia Shield proves a Switch version is possible and adds more than you'd expect, but for the definitive release, Nintendo ideally has something else in store for us. Anyway, that's all from me today. Give us a like or subscribe to support our work, and check out our Patreon at digitalfoundry.net for the original source file. To get notifications as each video lands, don't forget to ring the bell. Also, to get in touch directly, feel free to use Twitter. But until next time, thanks for watching.